Hey Cancer, and welcome to your monthly reading. So this is for Cancer Sun or Cancer Rising signs, and this is for the month of May. So we're going to pull all of your cards first, and then we'll get into them individually. So I am going to mention a couple of notable things for this month astrologically. I won't get into it in full detail. I've been integrating lately because there's just been so much astrology that's been notable in these readings, but I'm trying to keep it succinct for you guys. So, yeah, let me know how that feels or resonates. I wasn't feeling that card, actually. I wasn't feeling it. Let's keep going. Let's keep going. We're going to take a look at the beginning, middle, and end of the month for you. Get a vibe for how it's all unfolding for Cancer Sun, Cancer Rising, and we're going to take a look at a challenge card that's going to be coming up here. So we can already see it's happening in your 10th house. So we'll get into that in a moment. All right, and some spiritual advice for my Cancers. All right, I'm actually feeling this card here. Okay, I like it. I like that for some spiritual advice. All right, Cancer, so let's just talk about the astrology for a quick second. So on May 1st, we have Pluto stationing to go retrograde. So we talked a lot in previous videos about how Pluto is moving into Aquarius and what a big deal that is. It does this dance where when it ingresses into a new sign, it does this backwards forwards dance a couple times usually before it stays firmly in Aquarius. So it's going to move back into Capricorn. So just kind of know whatever themes around Pluto and Capricorn over the last 15 years that, were coming up for you, whatever you were dealing with regard to those themes, that's probably something you're going to be feeling over the next few months and be really wrapping up. Because when we get into the beginning of 2024, February sometime, I think it's the first half of February, we have Pluto staying firmly in Aquarius then for quite some time, for years and years and years. So that's just something I wanted to mention. I might do another video about looking at how you can find where in your chart this applies to. This is applicable. So if you guys can see my light moving, I'm nervous because my cat is rubbing up against it. And then we also have on May 5th, we have a big deal, which is we have the full moon lunar eclipse in Scorpio. Now, for a few different reasons, I feel like this is a big deal. One, we just had the solar eclipse. When we have the solar eclipse, we have then a lunar eclipse. And so this is the bookend. And as I've mentioned in previous videos, the eclipses can usher things in and usher them out, right? It's that ebb and flow. And sometimes that release can feel voluntary or we're being dragged along kicking and screaming. So this one in particular, though, I feel possibly has the potential to be quite emotional and something that you might feel more prevalent than you would the move with Pluto, right? So for a couple of different reasons, and I'll just go through them really quickly, right? So it's a south node eclipse. South node has to do with releasing, right? That's the point of release. It's excavating and it's releasing. And so that's one aspect of that, is releasing and letting go. And then we have it as a full moon, right? It's a full moon lunar eclipse. And full moons, as we know, emotions can be at their peak. They're amplified, right? And so we also have the moon in Scorpio, and Scorpio is a water sign, so there's that. There's also the water, but it's also a fixed sign, so that can be a little bit stubborn with the letting go, even though it is a sign that has to do with transformation, right? And that transformative process can sometimes feel uncomfortable, right? It can have to do with the lessons of letting go and how we don't want to sometimes, or looking at the things that we don't necessarily want to always look at. And with the moon being there, this is where it's one of the hardest positions for the moon to be in Scorpio. It's really uncomfortable there. It has a hard time there. So we just see a lot of things that have to do with emotion and that have to do with release, that these are all themes that are coming up here, right? And so You want to be just kind of aware. You could see this being reflected in your outer world, but also you might just feel this more on a personal level internally. How that shows up and where in your world it's going to show up is going to be determined by your natal chart. So you'll like wherever Scorpio is in your chart, you can look to like what house that is and get a better sense of like what themes this might really be around for you. Now this isn't a reading just about that. I am going to be doing full moon lunar eclipse readings a few days after these come out. Those readings will come out for that eclipse to the next new moon. So those will come out and we'll have something about that. But this is happening. It's the month reading, so I wanted to mention it here. So that said, it could also be you feeling maybe like you're the one who's releasing and letting go. Like you might come to a place where you feel very solidly about how like you're done with a certain chapter or phase in your life of maybe a certain way of being or certain habits or connections or people or projects or whatever it is. And you might say, you know what, I'm done. I've learned my lessons with this and I'm good, and I release it and I'm done with that. I'm closing that like chapter right there. So it can show up in a few different ways, but it could have the potential to be like an emotional letting go also. So I just want to give you guys a heads up about that. Obviously, we also are in Mercury retrograde as we come into the beginning of the month already, but it goes direct on May 14th in the middle of the month. And then after that, it is in post retrograde shadow, which basically means like it's still kind of like it's still speeding back up, right? It's not at full strength or full speed. It takes a little bit of time to like really get that momentum going. So you might still be feeling like remnants of the retrograde with that. End of the month, there's a whole bunch of stuff going on. We're not going to get into that. So I just want to mention the astrology so that we can like have a base for while we're talking about this. And also, like I said, to give you guys a heads up. So in order to focus these readings, I've been drawing from the astrological chart cards that I have. And I love when it shows up with a house card because it really gives us a clear idea of how to focus the reading in like exactly which area of life. Although sometimes the planets give us themes, but I do like this because it's more direct. So when we're dealing with the 10th house, this is a very public house, right? It can have to do with, obviously, career. Most notably, that's what people look to is like your career. People call it the career house. It's a very public and very seen house. So I feel like these things that are coming up for you in this particular area of life, when it has to do with your purpose and your career and that path, can feel like maybe a little bit exposed with some of the astrology here. But the 10th house is definitely about where we're striving to, like what we want to master, what we want to achieve, right? This is definitely a house of achievement. It says authority here, and I believe that the reason that they're probably saying authority on this particular deck is because the 10th house is ruled by Saturn, right? By Capricorn. And so that does have to do with, for sure with our authority. So there's a lot of crossover, right, with the houses and the rulerships and everything. So we can look to this area of your life. So definitely now we have an idea of like where this is really paying attention to. It's your very public life. It's your career life. It's that part of like where you're trying to achieve and where you want to get to that top of that mountain, right? Essentially, like what you see here. So with that, we're looking at the beginning, middle, and end of the month. So I split the month into thirds, right? And we start off with the King of Swords. We move into the King of Wands. Look at all this king energy coming through, which is not surprising, right? When we're looking at the career, when we're looking at being in our own authority, right? We're stepping into a place of leadership. Maybe you're not leading a team. Maybe you are, but this can be about stepping into a place of leadership within your own life, within yourself and what you're creating. Sorry, you guys, I'm going to take a sip of water. I've been talking a lot today. Okay. So then we move into the Nine of Pentacles. And, definitely Pentacles can have to do with, what is tangible in our world, with our resources. Our finances can be a part of that, although our resources aren't just our finances, with our physical environment and definitely with our self-worth. So I feel like this is definitely a building picture that we have going on here. And then we'll get into these two cards here. So let's start with the King of Swords, and the King of Wands is going to lead into this quite nicely. We start out with the King of Swords, right? King of Swords, I like to think of as like the philosopher king, like this intelligent philosopher king. So very clear-headed, definitely someone who's able to debate, be judicious, and to rule it with that kind of energy. So as we're coming into the month, I think you're needing to step into your own personal authority and leadership and responsibility. Let's remember that the kings are also about what they're responsible for. They're responsible for an entire kingdom. So the kingdom that you're creating for yourself, or that involves others, you know, perhaps if you have a family, or if you are you know, leading a team or whatever that might be, but, you know, needing to really step into this place of like owning your own, like what's so for you, what's like staying true to yourself, and also being able to manage other people's energies and to be able to create your world in a, like from a place that is very like logical and very I would say more structured, having more clarity, you know, enacting whatever kind of philosophical perspectives feel like assist you in creating that, especially with regard to like interacting with others or whoever you need to collaborate with. And then it's interesting because we have the contrast of that coming into the middle of the month, right? So this is the beginning of the month, right? Where, you know, you might need to actually keep that kind of logical, clear-headed kind of energy because of the eclipse and all of the emotional energy that I was talking about in that space, right? And you think about the 10th house is ruled by Capricorn, which is an earth sign, which is, you know, definitely is, again, it's like more structured type of energy as opposed to the emotional energy. And so, you know, I'm just kind of feeling like the contrast of the elements here and just noting like, hey, coming into the beginning of the month, you're probably going to need to like really fortify yourself. And like every time that you feel maybe emotionally pulled in a certain direction, there is this need to come back to a place of like logic and pragmatism. And then we move into the middle of the month, right? The middle third of the month, during this period of time, right, we are going to have Mercury go station direct. And so, you know, that might feel like it's a little bit more freeing. Perhaps you feel like you're stepping into a place that is more open to exploration and possibility in terms of like what you're creating. And again, you know, we're talking about creating, but we're talking about creating and responsibility and leadership from this place of like the King of Wands, and the Wands is the fire suit. This has to do with like our passions, our sometimes, yes, our intuition, and also our creativity, our fire, what sparks us. And also the King of Wands. I like to think of the King of Wands as being like this very charismatic, very intuitive, like very ready to act on the creative, intuitive impulses. And like that's their strength. Like their strength is creating from that place, from a place of also personal power. I feel like the King of Swords is definitely, you know, really solid within himself in a different way than the King of Swords, right? Definitely a very solid in personal power and trusting his gut and trusting the way that he goes forward and creating his kingdom, creating his world, right? Not impulsive, right? Not, you know, this isn't in the reverse or anything like that. So it's not like this is an impulsive king or anything like that. We're talking about, but really creating from that place of passion, right? And I think that you might start to feel like after you've gotten through like this particular third of the month, you're like, whew, okay, I can like move into this space now, this creative space, this more intuitive space, this more enjoyable probably space to create from for a lot of people, we might say. So, and then we move into the end of the month, and I feel like these are building this kind of like foundational progression into this Nine of Pentacles place. Now, the Nine of Pentacles is like being in a place of really valuing yourself, like owning your worth, owning your value. And in a way, kind of like knowing yourself well enough to stand inside of that solidly. Again, we're talking about Earth, so being able to stand in that in a very like solid way, like a very grounded and rooted way. Also, I believe that this is definitely the card of someone who's like getting their shit together or has it together. Like, I got me, I'm fine. I've got my coins. I know my worth and my value, and like really stepping into this place. So I feel like you're working towards and you're drawing towards being in this more, it feels more stable, and it feels definitely I mean, I love the feeling of the Nine of Pentacles. I think it's a really lovely place to be. And, you know, when it comes to your career, especially because we're talking about career path, I feel like this can be a place of owning your sense of like worth and value in order to also be seen and to create a foundation and something that is stable to help you with your resources, with your finances, with what you're creating for yourself. Now, I will say that the challenge that we have coming up here is the Four of Cups. And Four of Cups can be a couple of things, right? It can be about complacency and actually feeling kind of quite bored and like maybe a little bit lazy. Saying the hard things, it's not easy for me to say that. I know that it doesn't mean you're lazy, but I'm saying this could be one of the things where it's like just feeling like apathetic and not really wanting to put forth the energy into creating certain things because maybe it's not really exciting you. Maybe it's not feeling like it's really drawing you forward. On the other hand, this can also be about not wanting to really put in the effort because it's just not looking the way that you want it to. Like things aren't looking and feeling the way that you would like them to. And so it's just kind of like, oh, it doesn't feel and look the way that I want it to. And yet the universe is trying to come through. Again, like whenever we have these like floating hands that come through, if you've ever seen any of my readings, I like to talk about this, like it's kind of like our, you call it your spirit guides, angels, the universe, whatever, guardians. And they're kind of like coming, like materializing into our 3D experience. And they're kind of like trying to hand us something. They're trying to, usually it's a hand, and they're trying to hand over something to us, right? They're trying to give us something. And in this case, they're trying to give over an opportunity that I think would feel really good. And they're trying to show you like this particular like golden glowing chalice opportunity, or opportunities plural. And you're just not really seeing it either because you don't want to, or because you're just not seeing it because you're too focused on, that things are not like feeling or looking the way that you want them to. And so you're missing some of the opportunities that could be inside of that. So I would say with this particular card, like this is a time to like widen your perspective, like really open yourself up and try to see if you can notice more of like even small opportunities. Those can build momentum and really snowball. So really just like looking to where you're getting assistance, where you're getting these little assists of like synchronicity and things like that, really paying attention to that. And then with that, and I think even with aligned with that, we have the Ace of Wands showing up, and talk about like really getting some assistance with moving forward from a place of like passion, right? Like the Ace of Wands is definitely that spark of like passion, creativity, like, and the Ace of Wands has this fiery energy. Think of like a flaming torch and being passed on to you, right? And it's just like, here, you take the torch now. Now it's a blazing torch on fire, and you take this and go forth with it and go create, right? And so it's that really it's big like wildfire kind of energy, but more contained, right? Not chaotic. So, and again, here we have like the assistance that's coming out from the ethers and materializing into this world. So I feel like you're really getting some like pointing to, I feel like there's this real attention being like drawn with arrows in these two particular cards to like, hey, you're getting assistance. Like you need to kind of open your eyes and be able to, really pay attention to what is showing up for you, what's coming in, what are the synchronicities, like look for the messages that are happening because they're being handed to you. And so there's this need to really pay attention to it. I think it's really going to give you some assistance as you're going through building what you're building. I love how the top is very like, it's very like it's building and it's structure, and like even though we're looking at swords, it's like and the wands, it's like it's this, we're talking about kingdoms and leadership and stepping into these roles of like personal leadership and autonomy and responsibility and like really moving forward to like create this particular Nine of Pentacles card. And so this is all happening in this particular sector of your life, right? So I feel like this is like pretty clear. I would say if you want to kind of compare and get some of the picture of like what's been going on, take a look at your the solar eclipse to the solar eclipse, the new moon solar eclipse to full moon. So it goes to the full moon readings, and I'll have that appear on the screen. So I will be doing, like I said, I'll be doing the full moon lunar eclipse to the next new moon readings a few days after this. So you'll see those come out as well. So if you don't want to miss that and you're just kind of like really curious about that, I would say, you know, please hit the notification bell, like, subscribe, do all the things. The liking and the subscribing just helps me as I'm building this channel. So I just really appreciate the support. It is helpful. So either way, I hope that this was helpful for you, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.